Hey, Vikings fans, you are listening to the Purple People Podcast live. I am Kyle West, accompanied by Adam Carlson.
I'm right over here. We tried
What
to
is
get
up,
Mr.
sir?
Smith in this week, but we couldn't make it happen.
My taxes screwed everything up. We can blame the government, right?
Sorry about that. If you guys had a little echo there, I forgot to mute the live stream where you can go on YouTube and chat with us. So that's my bad. Sorry about that.
Mm-hmm.
This is a learning experience every week. Should be good to go now, though. Like I was saying, sorry again about not having Mr. Smith on. It's really hard to get things worked out with him and Mr. West, who's constantly a little bit busy these days, and Mr. Smith is always busy. And he's got a big opportunity, but I want him to tell you about it.
Yeah, we're super excited for him to finally get him on the show, but he's like we always say, he's the one out there with the real job out defending the country. So
Absolutely.
we give him. Yeah, me too. Doing whatever stupid junk I do when I'm not podcasting.
Absolutely. Well, I'd like to welcome everyone to episode number 196. Not sure if that's correct, but that's what we're going with.
Yeah. No, that is correct. It is correct.
Titled I Want It Greenway, and we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But as always, let's start off with some quick hits.
Yeah.
Sorry. Former Viking Jeff Schwartz, I was a big fan of this guy. Turns out that he will be joining the NFC North, but he's going to the Detroit Lions.
Detroit Lions. I was a Jeff Schwartz fan as well, too. We got him at kind of an odd time. He was injured. Didn't really get to play too much for the team. He's sort of a journeyman NFL player. I think it's safe to put that tag on him at this point. But wish him the best. He was always really good to the fans, even in his short time in Minnesota. All-around great guy.
He was in Minnesota during a bad time.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't blame him for wanting to move on. And things didn't work out with the Giants. And why not give it another try in Detroit? They need a lot of help on that offensive line.
Mm-hmm. He is a fun follow on Twitter, too, if you guys
Absolutely.
Get a chance. He's one of those rare players that will always communicate, which is really nice.
I remember last year when everyone was talking about another international superstar that people were checking out. This year, it's German wide receiver Moritz Böhringer posting a big Olympic workout. He could be that guy that comes into camp and has an awesome story, and it's just a lot of fun to follow. So maybe he'll be that guy this year.
He could be, but guess what? I'm probably not. It was going to be my bet because I hate to be the sourpuss here, but don't we have this story every year? There's some big international player that's going to be coming to the NFL. Who was the guy? He was the running back that everyone said, oh, my God, he's going to be better than Adrian Peterson. And where is he? He's not playing in the league.
No.
So whatever the German guy.
To become a professional wrestler now.
Yeah, totally. That was our signing everyone was excited for. Didn't quite pan out for Minnesota. I wish the German guy the best of luck, but you talk about a long shot. That's definitely way out there.
You can't teach physical ability, and apparently this guy is one hell of an athletic freak.
He was an Olympian. Do we know what Olympic sports he did? Was it track?
I don't have a lot of information about him, but as far as I know, the workout was just blew the roof off the place.
Well, Johnny Manziel had a hell of a workout, too.
He loves it.
Yeah.
Speaking of Mike Zimmer, he was talking about wanting a good team, not a team that's good in spurts. Now, we saw this with the Vikings, especially on offense. There were times the offense clicked, they were picking up first downs, moving the ball up and down the field, getting the defense rest. Then we saw times when the defense was playing lights out football, and other times that they struggled to give up long third downs and red zone opportunities. So it's that kind of consistency that Mike Zimmer is looking for. He is that kind of coach that wants that kind of players and team around him.
He had a really funny quote where he said that the team is not very good. And there were some of my friends who are not Vikings fans were taking that quote out of context and being like, well, yeah, no, not even the Vikings head coach thinks they're very good. But those of us who understand things know what Mike Zimmer is talking about when he's trying to instill the mentality that being good is not good enough. Because just being good doesn't win championships, and you can't be complacent with just being good. You got to raise the bar to being great. And great teams like the New England Patriots, for example, do not settle for just being good. And that is what Mike Zimmer is trying to do with the Vikings. I love it. Because so many years previously, you felt like underneath previous coaching staffs, they were okay with just being good. And
Right.
being good's not good enough. That doesn't get the job done.
And this statement isn't much different than the other one where Zimmer said, good is the enemy of great. It's not much different than that at all. He wants greatness from this team. He wants consistency. He wants a Super Bowl ring. He's that guy.
Yeah.
He doesn't care if the team wins a couple extra games here and there. Sure, it's cool. He doesn't care if the team increases their scoring output by 3 points per game. That's cool and all. Wins. He wants wins, and he wants that big win.
Mm-hmm. That's like we were talking about last season about how important it is to get that first NFC championship win for the Vikings. And you could play that whole game of whether or not it would have been smarter to win or lose or blah, blah, blah. Who cares? It's important for the team to win and to take those steps to be great.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
The Mike Zimmer Foundation has some pretty cool shirts over there. If you are a person that does coaching for high school or college or something like that, there's some cool inspirational shirts for that kind of coaching. But there's also a really neat Zimmer President shirt. It's one that I've actually considered ordering because it is really darn cool. Check it over on the Mike Zimmer Foundation website. And even if you aren't going to order a shirt, head on over there, check out the foundation. See some of the cool things they do for scholarships, football camps, good grades, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of great stuff that foundation does. Mm-hmm.
And the Zimmer for President t-shirt was really super awesome idea. As soon as I seen that, I was like, oh shit, I wish I would have thought of that one first. Because that's a really good design for that.
It's true, you could have made that one for a nice t-shirt.
Oh well, maybe next time, right?
It's been a kind of a quiet week, especially since we had a shorter week. But we did get a little big news in just because we waited that one extra day. We were going to try to record yesterday. We waited the day, and we got it this time.
It happens every time. Every time, Adam. You wait one extra day, and something will happen. Doesn't have to be big.
It sure
something will happen.
That way.
Yep.
Crazy. But the Minnesota Vikings will bring Chad Greenway back on a one-year deal. And that will be his final year with the Vikings as far as we know.
Mm-hmm. It even sounds like, from what I've seen on social media coming from either him or whoever runs like his Twitter or social media pages, that he's talking about this being his final year of playing football.
Absolutely.
Sounds super excited that he's going to be able to retire a Minnesota Viking, which is the way it should be. I've always wanted to see Chad Greenway go from beginning to end as a Minnesota Viking. There's a player that really deserves it. I love having him back on the team. I know that you can make all the cases in the world for him being, declining in production and whatnot, but we are still a really young team, and we need those veterans in the locker room. And I think that what Chad Greenway can bring to the locker room, a kind of leadership that you just don't get. He's also an incredible guy within the community for the team, as well as, face it, he may be on the decline, but the guy can still make plays. He can still get it done. And they're not going to play him as a full-time starter, but as a rotational guy, I love having Chad Greenway back.
And I'm going to rain on your parade a little bit. With them signing a couple free agent linebackers and maybe taking one in the draft, there isn't a guarantee that Greenway is going to be on this roster come the season.
Oh, no. Nothing's guaranteed, especially with Mike Zimmer, but I believe that he will have a spot on this roster.
It's likely, but it's not definitely not a guarantee. That's for sure. Let's go into our main topic where we're going to talk about the defensive line. Every week so far, we've been breaking down a position. Last week, I believe it was the offensive line. So this week, let's talk defensive line.
Defense.
Mr. Kyle West has the roster ahead of him, right in front of him there. But let's talk about the defensive ends first. We got Brian Robinson. This is, to me, the biggest question at defensive end is how much longer can he be productive? And was last year's sort of a little bit of a fluke for him? Was he dealing with injuries? What was going on? Because he wasn't as productive as we've seen from him in the past. And there are plenty of young defensive ends on this team, whether it's Danielle Hunter, Scott Crichton, whoever, that are hungry, trying to work their way up. It's going to be an interesting battle.
He's one of the vested veterans that in previous years you would just ink in as an automatic starter for this team, but now replace that pen with a pencil.
Yep.
And write in Chad Greenway, but keep the old paper-made eraser beside you just in case, because I agree with Adam, is that there is a lot of competition on this roster right now, and we haven't even got to the draft yet, so you never know what's going to happen. If Mike Zimmer feels that he can improve and get better production by switching B-Rob out with another player, or maybe he just doesn't even make the roster. Maybe you're able to trade him to another team or something.
Let's be honest, Danielle Hunter has been an absolute freak of nature.
He sure has. He sure has. And you know Zimmer, being a defensive-minded coach, is going to want to have the best two bookends that he can for this defense, because that's really, in my opinion anyway, that's where you win is with your two guys on. It starts with those two guys out on the edge.
Keep in mind, too, that Zimmer does love the keeping in rotations of fresh players. Mm-hmm. He'll play that NASCAR formation. He'll put defensive ends in it, defensive tackles on passing situations. It's really awesome to have this kind of depth at that position. There's also the who's the one defensive end that I'm forgetting about the Vikings re-signed this offseason?
Justin Turato.
Yep, Justin Turato. Knows for the football. He finds it. He's another valuable guy that, as part of a rotation or a backup, you can't go wrong with him.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of good depth at defensive end. Defensive tackle, I feel comfortable with where the Vikings are at there. Sharif Floyd, I think, made big strides last year, even though he dealt with some injuries. Linval Joseph is an absolute monster.
Yeah, Linval's a monster.
Tom Johnson, common name, uncommon talent, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And they brought back the other big fellow. Who's the other big defensive tackle that they just re-signed?
Oh, let's see. We got Shamar Stephen.
Nope.
We mentioned him. Toby Johnson. Didn't mention him. Sharif Floyd. Kendrick Ellis.
Kendrick Ellis.
Yes.
He's another big fellow to plug in there. If the Vikings do end up drafting a defensive tackle early, because this is a strong defensive tackle draft, so a really talented player at that position could fall to the Vikings in the first round. If that happens, a guy like Kendrick Ellis might be on the outside looking in, despite the fact that he is talented and he did a decent job holding ground on the games where Linval Joseph missed.
Mm-hmm. Hey, I'm of the mindset that you can never have enough defensive tackles. Like, when you think you're set for defensive tackles, you go ahead and you draft another one if there's one available, because that's a position that, hey, you get injuries and you need to have the depth and the talent behind them, and you can never. Those are the two positions, corner and defensive tackle, where you just take them. If you can upgrade, if you think you're set, but if you still think you can upgrade and you can draft one, you do it. You just do it. And I would not be surprised if we end up drafting another defensive tackle.
No, it wouldn't surprise me one bit either.
No. And they're rarely flashy picks unless you're getting one like really early, like top 5, top 10.
Right, like the last big splash, I believe, was Sue. Aaron Donald might have been one of the big ones too, but otherwise you don't hear a ton about defensive tackles. It's all about those skill positions.
It's a draft and develop position for sure. And lot of people tend to get, a little angry come draft day when you go for a, quote, boring position like defensive end or defensive tackle. But I'm all for it. I really am.
I wouldn't doubt it either. As long as the talent justifies the pick, I'm 100% for it. And I'm
going to talk about
more
Emerson.
those rotations too, because Zimmer got creative with how he brought pressure last year, and I expect to see a lot more of that. Whether it's switching a defensive tackle and a defensive end around, or plugging in players at other spots, sending exotic pressures, defensive stunts, anything. It's going to be interesting.
Well, we were talking about this a couple days ago, Adam, about just kind of what we feel our draft philosophy is for the Vikings. And it comes down to just athletic and extremely talented players who can play on multiple positions on the field. So you get guys like Anthony Barr, for example, that is a supremely talented athlete who can play multiple positions.
Right.
That is where I feel the Vikings are going to be looking for a first-round talent, because you're right. Zimmer likes to be creative. He likes to be able to shift his pieces around on defense and create a mismatch. And you get a guy like an Anthony Barr who you can line up at linebacker, or if you want to, you can, for one play, you can flip him and he can play defensive end. And you can get a mismatch and something that, the offense is not expecting. I am looking for, in the first round for this year's draft, for the Vikings to go defense, and I am looking for them to go with another player that kind of fits the mold of an Anthony Barr, someone that can fill in and play multiple roles for them.
I could understand that totally. We saw the same thing with Eric Kendricks. They didn't draft him thinking, oh, he's an outside linebacker, maybe he's an inside linebacker. They didn't put one tag on him, and they still don't have one tag on him. They'll play him wherever they need to. If there's a great talent in the draft at middle linebacker available when they're on the board, they'll take it and they'll move Kendricks over. It's that kind of thing. And when you got a guy who can play nose, or he can go in and just play standard defensive tackle, or maybe they can switch him in, hold his own on the corner as a defensive end, hey, fantastic. Why not?
I like it. I've always been a really big fan of position flexibility players, and it's nice that not only when you have position of flexibility, but you have a staff that is able to maximize and get the most out of that talent.
In the past, we never saw this. Kevin Williams had one spot.
Pat Williams.
Jared Allen had one spot.
We love Jared Allen. I love Jared
one
Allen.
Spot.
Jared Allen's one of my favorite Vikings of all time, but he was pretty much just rush the quarterback. Regardless of what everyone else was doing on the field, you just let Jared Allen rush the quarterback. Now, he was incredibly good at it,
Sure.
and it's going to get him to the Hall of Fame one day, and it worked out great for him statistically. But maybe that wasn't always, the smartest approach to winning football games for the team. And I don't know. I'm much happier with being able to move guys around and be creative on defense. And offense as well, too. I think They need to be more creative. I know that's not really one of our topics, but they need to get creative and find ways to get the ball into the hands of playmakers like a Jarius Wright or a Stephon Diggs. They need to do a better job of getting the ball in those guys' hands, whether that's manufactured touches or short throws or long throws or whatever. I hope they're working on that this offseason.
See, we're feeding into the concept here, though, that defensive line isn't as important, because we are sure moving away from talking about those individuals.
Well, we're in draft mode a little bit right now, too. We're getting closer to it. And I know the closer we get to draft time, just the more excited I get about it.
Yeah, less than a month away. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah.
A social media question of the week. We asked you guys, do you believe Cordero Patterson can still be an impact wide receiver for the Minnesota Vikings? This could be his last year for the Minnesota Vikings, unless he can prove that he can do more than just return kicks. So we asked you guys, and John Dostal says, honestly, I don't even know if he has what it takes to be a good kick returner anymore.
Ooh, ouch.
He can't make people miss like Hester. He just has the speed. Wouldn't be surprised if Zimmer cuts him if he doesn't show up in any preseason games. Youch. Brandon Ellis says physically he has all the tools. just needs to put in the work. I do think the coaching staff needs to give him a bit more of opportunities this year. If he continues to struggle, then we can move on from next year without second-guessing ourselves. Thomas Waitford Buge says he shouldn't be a wide receiver, and his kick returner skills are lacking too. I'd try him at halfback and see if he can make it. Otherwise, he's done. Corbin Johnson has faith. He says, yes, we need a playmaker at wide receiver, and he needs to step up. Lyle Douglas says, no, shoot, I'm wearing his jersey, so I had faith, but this guy doesn't have the drive. Marcus Sway says, only if he finally decides to take it seriously. Lucas Bernard truly hopes so. Leigh Montgomery says, no, not at all. And David Shaw says, no.
No.
Just no.
Just no. I have Cordero Patterson jersey. I want to see 84 succeed for the team. It's put up or shut up time for him.
That's true.
It really is. He's got to get
Scully
it done.
Bikes over in the chat on YouTube says, how about adding Jalen Smith with the 23rd pick? He is surely a top 5 pick. Jalen Smith is interesting because I believe he's going to fall because of medical issues. So I actually do think he's going to be on the board at 23. The question is an injury-prone-ish player. I won't say he's injury-prone because, like Adrian Peterson had some injuries in college. He got drafted, and yes, he had some injuries in the pros too, but that's just football. And sometimes injuries just happen. A guy like Jalen Smith would be interesting. I believe I wrote on my Viking Age draft profile that I wouldn't complain if he was the Vikings' first-round pick, but I wouldn't really love it either. And I don't think that Mr. West has done a lot of draft research to this point.
The stream fell a little bit behind me, Adam. You were talking, and then the video kind of was getting choppy there for a minute. No, I am not the draft expert on the show. That's Adam. Adam's the draft guru out there. I'm all for really just best available, where the Vikings are at this stage. And I know that's they're going to say that's a cop-out answer, but really, you go for best available at that point because you can. I feel like you can go any number of positions, and you can succeed with this roster for the Vikings because there's not a lot of glaring holes that say you have to go wide receiver, or you have to go quarterback, or you have to go running back. It's like you can draft best available kind of out there and then plug them in as needed.
I gotta say, though, that Jalen Smith, he did have a really nice pro day, just like Scully Vikings mentioned in the chat there. That might increase his stock, so who knows? Maybe he'll go earlier than I think. That's the thing about the draft. You never know. A lot of people saw Sharif Floyd as a top 5 pick. He fell all the way down. Little T-Rex arms, they said, remember?
Yeah. Or Randy Moss back in the day, he was supposed to go, should have went way higher than what we got, and he fell to us. Adrian Peterson, he falls because of injury concerns. I would be okay if the Vikings took a wide receiver. They've had issues for a while now of really having a go-to guy, and I don't know if the player that you guys are talking about is a go-to guy, but we sure need one. Like, Stephon Diggs is doing a good job. I love Jarius Wright, but I don't know if either of those two are a number one full-time go-to talent for the Vikings at that position. It could realistically be another year of just having some guys on the team that are talented, but not a true number one before they are finally able to go out and snag that go-to guy for Teddy.
I do have to admit, though, Smith along with Kendricks and Barr is interesting. Definitely interesting. We did not come up with a social media question for next week because we are lazy bums over at the Purple People podcast.
Yeah.
But we'll come up with something we'll post up on the Facebook page. Unless you got something for us.
No, I don't have nothing. I was going to tell them you can find us at facebook.com/Purple People Podcast.
That is us. Or at Purple People Pod on the Twitter machine.
You betcha. VikingAge.com.
Yeah, that's my writing stuff.
Yeah.
We are going to keep this episode here pretty short. We don't have, like I said, we don't have a ton to talk about this week. We are going to be going into full draft mode here pretty soon. We're going to finish up our positional stuff, talk draft, because there aren't going to be as many transactions and news-related items up to that point. Maybe we'll get a couple more signings, camp bodies, stuff like that. So it'll be a lot of fun. But for now, we're going to keep the videos a little shorter. And, well, I say videos, but also up on iTunes on the podcasts. And, for the people that don't want to look at our mugs, that's okay. I understand that. I wouldn't want to look at my face for 25 minutes either. But that's all I have for this week. Do you have anything else you want to add in?
Nah, I just want to thank everyone for checking us out, for joining up, watching the live show, being in the old chat room with us, for asking us questions and stuff. We love that. We really want to try to gear the show towards getting more people in the chat room and doing more interactions. And at any point, whenever we're talking, guys, feel free to chime in.
Absolutely.
Let us know. Yeah, let us know what you think. You got a question? Ask us. We'll stop and we will answer it, even if it's something that doesn't have. Even if we're talking about linebackers and you want to know about Blair Walsh, for example, ask us and we will answer it.
If you want to know if Mr. West there is wearing boxers or briefs, he might tell you. You never know.
Yeah.
Although I don't know, maybe he's got some lady fans out there that just can't get enough.
Maybe I'm freeballing it, Adam. You never know.
I never even considered it.
There's always, as we have learned in our social media question, you ask someone A or B, and they will find a way to fit in an answer C.
They will. They always will. That's all I have for this week. Thank you again to Scully Vikes for joining us in the chat. Much appreciate that. Hopefully we can get some more folks in there. We're going to try to start scheduling these again a little bit more like we did this week, so you guys can have at least an hour notice before we go live to try to be here and chat with us. We'd like to be able to set a regular scheduled time, but with the way the three of us are, it's nearly impossible. But like I said, we're going to try to give you that kind of advanced stuff. One more quick plug. Undead Walking, big Season 6 finale on Sunday. I know it's opposite WrestleMania. I know. But come on. Zombies first, Body Slam second. That's the way you got to do it.
I'm looking forward to this week's Walking Dead episode that's going to be coming up.
90 minutes. And we're going to get to see some mind-blowing stuff.
I have some predictions. I have some predictions for what I think could happen.
But yeah, go to Undead Walking and check me out there. You guys know all about my stuff on the Viking Age. I'm an editor over there, along with Dan Zinski. He does great work over there. Join us over there in the conversation. We got Discuss going all the time. Otherwise, MN Viking Zombie on Twitter. What's your handle over there? Or do you just basically use the Purple People Pod account?
At Purple People Pod over on Twitter, how you can get a hold of me. I'm the one that does that, and you can talk football 24/7.
He'll talk other stuff with you, too, if you want. TV shows, wrestling, who his favorite supermodel is.
Yeah.
His favorite Bollywood movie. He loves that stuff. But we're getting a little bit out there. So thanks again for listening, and remember to stay classy, Minnesota.